Dear students, today I will discuss about the structure of proteins and the functions of protein. Well, this is a very broad topic in the sense that proteins are the largest amount of biomolecules present in living system. In terms of dry weight of the cell, 50% of dry weight of biomolecule is of proteins. As you all know that carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids and proteins are the four major biomolecules of the cell. Every biomolecule has its own specific structure and specific function. In terms of the function of a biomolecule, proteins play very important role. Actually, every kind of work performed by a given cell or different type of cell, even a bacterial cell, even a eukaryotic cell. In eukaryotic cell, it may be a muscular cell, it may be a heart muscle cell, it may be a mesophyll cell of a plant. The diverse kind of functions are performed by the proteins. Nucleic acids are the master molecule of the cell. They give information, they give direction to proteins to perform function according to the type of the cell in which they are being synthesized. So, we can say that proteins are the most vital molecule and the most abundant molecule in the cell. Vital and most abundant molecule in the cell. Proteins, as other biomolecules, they are polymers of amino acids. Well, amino acids are nitrogen containing compounds in which amino group and carboxyl group are present, and there are total 20 different kinds of amino acids which may be called as proteogenic amino acids. They forms different type of or all type of proteins found in nature. There are many amino acids, they can be called as non-proteogenic amino acids which are not part of proteins, because the genetic code is universal in nature. Therefore, there are common 20 amino acids right from the bacteria to the complex eukaryotes. Proteins are, or we can say the amino acids are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and sulfur containing organic compounds. The ratio of these elements differs. Well, the carbon is the most dominant, something around 55%, hydrogen is something around 9%, oxygen is something around 20%, it is something around 15%, it is something around 4%. This is a rough estimate of the presence of these elements in amino acid and in proteins. So, we can say the carbon is the most dominating, then followed by oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen and sulfur. So, further, proteins can be categorized at a broad level. इनको बड़े तौर पर हम डिवाइड कर सकते हैं दो बड़े समूहों के अंदर. One is globular protein, or we can say dynamic proteins. Another one is static protein. They are actually fibrous proteins. Fibrous proteins generally play structural role inside the cell, while globular proteins play functional role inside the cell. The structural role, for example, collagen, for example, keratin, silk fibrin, these all proteins generally provide a mechanical support to the cell or to the membrane or to the extracellular matrix. In case of globular proteins, they play a functional role. Well, majority of proteins are globular proteins, and the diversity of proteins are of globular proteins. For example, like antibodies, like hormones, enzymes, membrane receptors, membrane transport proteins, transcription factors. These are some selected examples of the globular proteins, and you can see that, for example, transcription factors controls regulation of gene expression. Antibodies, they are important part of defense system. Even there are many proteins like interleukins, cytokinins, they are also part of immune body's defense mechanism. They all are globular proteins. Hormones, you can say they control the physiology of the organism, physiologic process. Enzymes, they control the biochemical processes of the cell and the organism. Membrane receptors, they perceive the signal from the outside environment. Membrane transport protein, they are responsible for transport of protein, transport of molecules inside and outside the cell. So globular proteins are of diverse kind, and they play a very important role in the cell structure function. And the static proteins, also known as fibrous proteins, they play structural role. For example, collagen, elastin, keratin, etc. Now, before studying the structure, my lecture is focused only on the structure of protein. For function, I will take a different class. As we all know that they are polymer of amino acids, and in particular proteogenic amino acids. Which in nature they are of 20 different kinds. Well, there are some examples of non-proteogenic amino acids. Like GABA, that is gamma amino butyric acid, which is a neurotransmitter in nervous system. Ornithine, citrulline, they are part of the uric acid synthesis process. But these are also amino acid, but they are not part of a protein, so they can be called as non-proteogenic amino acid. All the amino acids which are not part of proteins, they can be categorized, they can be grouped into non-proteogenic amino acids, while all the amino acids which are part of proteins are called as proteogenic amino acids. They are of 20 different kinds. So we will focus on proteogenic amino acids now. These amino acids have two functional groups, NH2 and COOH. One is basic in nature, other is acidic in nature. And these two groups are attached with same carbon, and hence these amino acids are called as alpha amino acids. Means if amino group and carboxyl group are attached with the same carbon, it means they are called as alpha amino acid. The basic structure of amino acids is NH2, C alpha, COOH, H, and a side chain. Here I am designating as R. The side chain varies in every amino acid, while all amino acids are similar in this structure. That is, the amide group, the amino group, the carboxyl group, and the hydrogen and the center C alpha carbon. This structure is similar in all amino acid, and this side chain differs in all amino acids. One important property of amino acid is that they are optically active as well. Why they are optically active? For example, say this amino acid is L-alpha amino acid. This alpha is because of the presence of amino group towards left hand side. Well, it is levorotatory, and D for dextrorotatory. Means if an amino acid is an optically active, it is because of this central carbon. This C alpha carbon is asymmetric carbon. What do you mean by asymmetric carbon? Asymmetric carbon means if a carbon is surrounded by 4 different groups, then that carbon is called as asymmetric carbon. Here you can see this is the side chain, which is a different group, amino group is different, hydrogen is different, COH group is different. So it is a asymmetric carbon. So we can say an asymmetric carbons are chiral carbon. Chiral carbon means they can rotate plane, polarized light either towards left or towards right, that is either towards dextrorotatory or towards levorotatory, and this property is known as optical activity. So optical isomers are possible in case of amino acids. There is a formula known as 2 raised to power n, where n is number of asymmetric carbon. N is the number of asymmetric carbon. In case of amino acids, C alpha, COOH, NH2, H, R group, the base is same. You can see NH2, this is alpha amino acid. The isomeric form of this amino acid is C alpha, NH2, COOH, H, and R group. Here this amino group is in our right hand side, so it is D amino acid. Now you can see 2 raised to power n means where n is the number of asymmetric carbon. This formula is for how much isomers can be possible for a given molecule. So in case of amino acid, n is always 1 because there is only one asymmetric carbon is present. But in case of glucose, you can find there are many asymmetric carbon. So in case of glucose, which is a carbohydrate, there are as many as 16 possible optical isomers are possible. So in case of amino acid, n is equal to 1, it means 2 raised to power 1 is equal to 2. So only 2 isomers are possible in case of amino acids. One is called as L amino acid, alpha amino acid, another is called as D alpha amino acid. But in living system, only L form of amino acids are found. In living system, only L form of amino acids exist, while D forms never exist, though there are some rare examples where D forms are found in bacterial cell wall. And even in evolutionary theory, it was supported by evidences that some of the organic matter comes from outer space, and that organic matter contains amino acids, and that amino acids were D form of amino acids. But majority of amino acids are of L form, that is called as L alpha amino acid. So out of 20 amino acids, 19 amino acids are optically active. Out of 20, 19 amino acids are optically active, means they may be present in either L form or in D form, while the one which is glycine is optically inactive, because glycine possesses symmetric carbon. The structure of glycine is like that. This is NH2, this is C alpha, COOH, H, and the side chain of glycine consists of only a single hydrogen atom. This is the side chain. So this carbon is now C alpha, because it is not surrounded by 4 different groups. It has 2 similar groups. Therefore, it is a symmetric carbon, and when there is symmetric carbon, it is optically inactive. So there is no L form or D form of in case of glycine, while the rest of 19 amino acids are optically active. Now we will classify amino acid on the basis of their chemical nature of the side chain into 4 categories. Or we can say grouping of amino acids on the basis of chemical nature of side chain, that R group, because the remaining structure is similar in all 20 different kind of amino acids. So on this basis, 4 different groups, or we can say we can classify all proteogenic amino acids into 4 different groups. The first one is aliphatic non-polar amino acids. The second one is aromatic amino acids. The third one is polar but uncharged amino acids, and the last one is polar and charged amino acids. Now, the function of a protein depends upon the sequence of amino acid present in the polypeptide or in that protein. And each amino acid behaves in a different manner because of the presence of the unique side chain. So, the structure of the protein is responsible for the function of protein, and the structure of a protein, in which possible arrangement, in which available space, how a polypeptide will fold directly depends upon the nature of the side chain, or we can say the sequence of the amino acid, that is the type of amino acid. Now, first is aliphatic non-polar amino acids. You can see in this case, first one is glycine. These all are L amino acid, NH2, C alpha, COO, H, then H, and here it is H. The base is common. This is glycine. This is the side chain. Next one is alanine. Now I will represent this structure NH2, C alpha, COH and H in such type of box. It is not necessary to write it again and again. CH3. This is of alanine. Valine. CH2, CH3 and CH3. This is the side chain of valine. Next one is leucine. CH2, CH3 and CH3. It has some longer side chain. This is leucine. It is having a longer light chain as compared to the previous alanine, valine and glycine. Next one is isoleucine. Isoleucine is we can say isomeric form of leucine. The structure of isoleucine is like CH3, CH2 and CH3. You can see the same number of carbon atoms, 4 carbon atoms. Here are also 4 carbon atoms but arranged in a different manner. So leucine and isoleucine are isomers. Next one is methionine. Now methionine contains a sulfur group. CH2, CH2, S and CH3. You can see here a sulfur group in case of methionine. Now, methionine is an important molecule, and even isoleucine and methionine. They are considered as excellent alpha helix former amino acids. As further, in cells, DNA methylation is an important process. DNA methylation controls various different type of processes in nucleus, like regulation of gene expression at chromatin packaging level. When DNA is methylated, it is highly condensed, and the highly condensed form of DNA can never be expanded, or it cannot be transcribed. So wherever DNA methylation occurs, that part of DNA is in non-transcribed form. Further, DNA methylation also protects DNA from nuclease activity, whether it is in particular endonuclease activity. And a molecule responsible for methylation in cell is known as S-adenosyl methionine. That is called as SAM. Though methionine metabolism is totally dependent upon this amino acid. So methionine is important. It is an important part of, it is a component of protein as well, but despite of a part of a protein, methionine is also involved in called as a methionine metabolism, in which methionine creates S-adenyl methionine, and S-adenosyl methionine is a reservoir of methylation inside the cell. Next one is cysteine. Sulfahydryl group, cysteine. There is important nature of the sulfahydryl group is that they can form disulfide linkages, or we can say salt bridges between a polypeptide molecule. The salt bridges is formed between two cysteine residues in just like that, in this manner. For example, this is one cysteine plus another cysteine here. With the loss of a hydrogen atom, this is one cysteine, this is another cysteine, these are two different amino acids. They will form now a disulfide linkage between the sulfur atoms, S, CH2, CH2, this is called as disulfide linkage. Also known as, popularly known as salt bridges. Now, this salt bridges is formed within polypeptide, and the time of formation of this salt bridge, this disulfide linkage is a covalent bond. Covalent bonds are strong bonds. They have high bond energy as compared to the non-covalent bonds. Now, when a polypeptide has been synthesized after translation, the disulfide bond formation takes place, and maximum disulfide bond formation takes place in those polypeptides which are destined to be secreted outside the cell, or we can say maximum disulfide linkages formation occurs in secretory proteins. Secretory proteins means the proteins which is synthesized on rough endoplasmic reticulum, not on cytoplasmic ribosomes. They are present on bound ribosomes. So bound ribosomes we can say they synthesize polypeptides. These polypeptides are then transferred into rough endoplasmic reticulum. From rough endoplasmic reticulum, they are being transported to Golgi bodies, and Golgi bodies to either they are secreted outside the cell, or they may be secreted to as a part of a plasma membrane. So such type of bonds are commonly found in, for example, this is a protein, say one end is NH2 and another end is COH end. Suppose this is cysteine, this is another cysteine, and the disulfide bond formation. They are also responsible for protein folding, which we'll study later. The last amino acid in this category is proline. It is an unusual amino acid. It has NH2 group, that is called as imino group. It has imino group rather than amino group. The imino group is different from amino group, and therefore it behaves in a different manner, and which is evident in the secondary structure of proteins, particularly alpha helix. This is not a good amino acid for alpha helix formation. You can see this is the side chain. This is the side chain of proline. One of the carbon atom is linked with the imino nitrogen group of proline. So these all are the examples of aliphatic non-polar amino acid. Non-polar amino acid means, and non-polar amino acids are actually hydrophobic amino acids. They are hydrophobic amino acids. Means they do not form any type of hydrogen bonds with the water molecules. They are not dissolved in water molecules. The next category is aromatic amino acid. Three amino acids can be grouped in aromatic category. First one is phenyl aniline. A sort of benzene ring is there. Phenyl alanine. Tryptophan, it is bicyclic in nature, while this is phenylalanine is monocyclic in nature, and the last one is tyrosine. Well, phenylalanine is actually non-polar, while tryptophan and tyrosine possess a sort of some sort of polarity in themselves, so they may be hydrophilic in nature. The important thing is that due to their aromatic nature, they can absorb UV radiations. So aromatic amino acids absorbs UV rays and their lambda max is 280 nanometer. Means at this wavelength they absorb maximum radiations. So proteins, even DNA, nucleic acid also they can also absorb ultraviolet radiations. So proteins can absorb UV radiation by virtue of presence of these three amino acids known as aromatic amino acids. Next one is third one is polar but uncharged amino acids. Serine, it has having OH group, and due to presence of OH group in the side chain, it exhibits polarity. Threonine, this is OH. Asparagine, C double bond O and CH3. This, because of this, it is exhibit polarity. This is asparagine. And the last one in this category is glutamine. CH2, CH2, C double bond O and CH3. Glutamine. So these are the four polar amino acids but uncharged. Okay. So they are kept in this category. The last and final category is polar but charged amino acid. Polar but charged amino acids. In this case, it can further divide it into two subgroups: positively charged amino acids and negatively charged amino acids. The examples of positively charged amino acids are lysine, arginine, and histidine. This is the structure of lysine. This is the side chain of arginine, and histidine has imidazole ring, CH2. This 5-member ring is called as imidazole ring structure, and this is histidine. So these all are polar and positively charged amino acids: lysine, arginine, and histidine. The next subgroup is of negatively charged amino acids, and the negatively charged amino acids are aspartic acid, that is, it can be also called as aspartate, and glutamic acid, that is glutamate. This is aspartic acid, and this is glutamic acid. So 5 amino acids, mainly positively are lysine, arginine, histidine, and negatively charged aspartic acid and glutamic acids comes under polar charged amino acids. They are polar. Polarity means they can form hydrogen bond with water, or we can say they are hydrophilic nature, whether they may be uncharged or they may be charged. So these are 20 different type of proteogenic amino acids grouped in 4 different groups on the basis of property of their side chain, not on the basis of their we can say the basic structure, that is NH2COH and the H group. Finally, we can categorize these all amino acids as hydrophobic and hydrophilic. Amino acids. For example, all non-polar amino aliphatic like glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, methionine, proline, as well as phenylalanine. Phenylalanine is actually aromatic amino acid. These are the amino acids which are hydrophobic in nature, and while the rest of all other amino acids, tryptophan, tyrosine, well, tryptophan has low polarity, it is not so much polar. Serine, threonine, asparagine, glutamine, lysine, arginine, aspartate, and glutamate. They all are polar in nature. They all are polar in nature means hydrophilic nature, and they all are non-polar in nature. So this is very important, because in a polypeptide, for example, this is a polypeptide. Say it is a tertiary structure of a polypeptide, and we know that the environment of the cell, cytoplasm or nucleoplasm, is aqueous in nature. So on the outer surface of the polypeptide, the maximum amino acids which are present on the outer surface are of hydrophilic in nature. Say these are the amino acids which are present on outer surface of the polypeptides. They are hydrophilic in nature, while the proteins which are found inside the core of the polypeptide, core means away from the aqueous environment. This is the protein, and here it is water. There are water molecules. So non-polar amino acids prefers to be found inside the core region of the polypeptide, while the outer region is dominated by the hydrophilic amino acids. And hydrophilic amino acids, and even particularly charged amino acids, are very much important in case of catalysis of reaction. You can find out that the lysine, arginine, histidine, here I am missing histidine, aspartate, glutamate, threonine, serine, tyrosine, these are the common amino acids which are found to be present inside the active site of an enzyme, है ना. Tyrosine, serine, threonine, asparagine, glutamine, lysine, arginine, histidine, aspartame, and glutamate. These are the most common type of amino acids found in active site of an enzyme. Say this is an enzyme. This is the active site. One important property of amino acids is that, well, when in biological system the environment of the cell is aqueous, so the amino acids are found in ionic form, and that ionic form is called as deuterion. This is the R group. This is the non-ionic form. This is the non-ionic form. But in real aqueous environment, that environment present inside the cell, they are present in this form: NH3, C alpha, COO negative, H, and the side chain. So a molecule having a positive as well as negative group is known as deuterion. So in real condition, amino acid inside the cell are present in such condition. So this is about the types of amino acids, the structure of amino acids, the nature, the chemical nature of the amino acids of all 20 proteogenic amino acids. Now we will move towards the levels of structure of proteins, because protein is a polymer. Polymer of what? Amino acids. Amino acids are monomer. Amino acids are, for example, this is an amino acid, this is amino acid, this is amino acid, this is amino acids. They act as a monomer. When they are bounded with or they are attached with a covalent bond, then we can call them as a polymer. So each amino acid is attached with a particular type of bond, and that bond is called as peptide bond. And this peptide bond formation occurs during protein synthesis, that is translation. And peptide bond is covalent bond. For example, this is one amino acid, this is second, third, fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 amino acids are linked with 1, 2, and 3 peptide bonds. So this structure can be called as tripeptide. इसी तरह से tripeptide, tetrapeptide, pentapeptide, like that. So we can now, after formation of peptide bond, the structure like peptides, dipeptides, tripeptides, tetrapeptides, oligopeptides, polypeptides arises. So how this peptide bond formation occurs, just have a look on this topic, and then we will move towards the levels of structure of protein, that is the primary structure of protein, the secondary structure of protein, the tertiary structure of protein, and the quaternary structure of protein. Peptide bond. Suppose this is one amino acid, NH2, C alpha, C double bond O, OH. This is COH. We can rewrite COH in this in such case, in such type. This is the carbonyl carbon. This is the hydrogen, and suppose this is the side chain, designated in red chalk in red color, that is R group. This is another amino acid, and H, NH2, C alpha, COOH. This is the R group, say, and H. So this is one amino acid, this is another amino acid. Now, peptide bond formation occurs between the reaction for peptide bond formation occurs between the amino group of the next amino acid and the carboxyl group of the previous amino acid. And this reaction is actually catalyzed by peptidyl transferase enzyme. Peptidyl transferase enzyme. This enzyme catalyzes the reaction of formation of peptide bond, and this reaction is catalyzed during the process known as translation. कब होगा? जब प्रोटीन सिंथेसिस होगा, ट्रांसलेशन. And the most important thing is that this peptidyl transferase is not a protein, it is an RNA. So we can call it as a ribozyme. It is an RNA enzyme. Now, if you study the protein synthesis, whether it is in prokaryotes or in eukaryotes, what happens? This is the mRNA. This is the large subunit of ribosome. This is the small subunit of the ribosomes. Amino acids transfer RNAs. This is amino acids. This is the polypeptide chain. This is the transfer RNA which is new, and the peptide bond formation occurs between these two amino acids like this. Suppose this one is the previous amino acid. This one is the previous amino acid, and this is the new amino acid brought by the transfer RNA, and that RNA, that peptidyl transferase, is part of this is peptidyl transferase. This peptidyl transferase is part of large subunit. For example, if it is a prokaryote, it is a prokaryotic translation, then this peptidyl transferase is actually 23S rRNA. This 23S rRNA will catalyze the formation of peptide bond formation between two amino acids. आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से पेप्टाइड बॉन्ड फॉर्मेशन होगा. तो पेप्टाइड बॉन्ड फॉर्मेशन के अंदर क्या होगा? सिंपली एक हाइड्रोलाइसिस होगा जिसमें एक वाटर मॉलिक्यूल लिबरेट होगा, और ये रहा वाटर मॉलिक्यूल. सो OH फ्रॉम द हाइड्रोक्सिल ग्रुप फ्रॉम द COH group and hydrogen from the amino group, they will form a water molecule, and they are liberated, and the peptide bond is then formed between this carbon and this nitrogen. ये बात है, आप इससे कोई बात नहीं, चलो. OH plus H, water molecule is liberated, H2O, and now you will see this a peptide bond, C double bond O H R again N H C alpha C O O H H N R group. This is the side chain. Now this is peptide bond. This is peptide bond in yellow color. Peptide bond is very strong bond. So it is rigid and planar. Now this whole structure will be called as the backbone of polypeptide. Backbone of polypeptide. In backbone, you can see the molecules like NH2, C alpha, carbonyl carbon, amino nitrogen, again C alpha and the COH. ना यहाँ पर तो हमने सिर्फ 2 अमीनो एसिड लिए. सपोज ये अगर 100 अमीनो एसिड होते तो भी आप देखते यू कैन फाइंड दैट कि जो पहला अमीनो एसिड होता है उसका NH2N फ्री रहेगा और जो आखिरी अमीनो एसिड होगा उसका COHN फ्री रहेगा. बाकी जो बीच के जितने भी 98 अमीनो एसिड्स हैं उनके NH2 और उनके COH आपस में पेप्टाइड बॉन्ड फॉर्मेशन करेंगे. सो ओनली टू जो इसलिए अपन कहते हैं जब कन्वेंशनली ये देखा गया ये कि जब आप किसी पॉलीपेप्टाइड को डेजिग्नेट करते हैं तो इस तरीके से करते हैं NH2 फ्री एंड एंड COH फ्री एंड. द NH2 इज ऑफ द फर्स्ट अमीनो एसिड एंड द COH फ्री एंड इज ऑफ द लास्ट अमीनो एसिड. एंड दिस स्ट्रक्चर which you can see in the diagrams of books is actually the backbone. And the components of backbone is what? NH2, NH2 the free end of the first amino acid, COH the COH group of the last amino acid, and the carbonyl carbon, the asymmetric carbon, the C alpha carbon, the carbonyl carbon, the amino nitrogen of all intermediate amino acids involved in peptide bond formation. They all form the backbone, and backbone is purely made up of 3 different kinds of bonds. There are only 3 different kinds. There are 3 different kinds of bonds. For example, one is C alpha C bond, another is C and N bond. That C and N bond is what? Peptide bond. And the other one is N and C alpha bond. The C alpha C, the bond between C alpha and C is actually called as psi, and the bond between C alpha and N is called as phi, while the bond between amino nitrogen and carbonyl carbon is called as peptide bond. The bond length of peptide bond is 1.31 angstrom, while the bond length of C alpha C is something around 1.53 angstrom, while the bond length between C alpha and N is 1.41 angstrom. So you will found 3 different type of bonds in the backbone of polypeptide. This is the backbone. In 3D structure, suppose this is the polypeptide NH2 and COH. This is the backbone. This is. Note one important thing is that side chains are not part of backbone. Side chains are not part of backbone. They always extrudes either towards outside or towards inside of the polypeptide. in 3D structure. So this is the NS2. This is the 3D structure of a polypeptide. This entire structure is backbone, while the side chain will either protrude outside or they may be present inside, but they are never part of the backbone. Now, backbone contains three different kinds of bonds: C alpha C, C and N, and C alpha N. The bond length of C alpha C is 1.53 angstrom. The bond length of C alpha N, which is called as peptide bond, is 1.31 angstrom, and C alpha N is 1.41 angstrom. You can find that the bond length of peptide bond is very small, which is the smallest. Bond length means the molecules are closer, while C alpha C has having the maximum bond length, that is the largest bond length, and it is having an intermediate bond length. It means that this bond is much stronger as compared to the C alpha N and C alpha C. So peptide bond is the strongest bond of these three bonds, and therefore this peptide bond is planar. Planar means there is no rotation possible between this bond, and rigid. Rigid means strong, but without bending, without rotation, you cannot think about the folding of a protein. It means the protein folding depends upon rotation between C alpha C bond and C alpha N bond. It doesn't depend upon the rotation between peptide bond. So this, for example, this is the 3D structure of protein. So it is in folded manner. So this folding of the protein depends upon this bond and this bond. It doesn't depend upon the peptide bond. They will form. These bonds will be rotated, and the angles created after rotation is called as rotational angles or torsion angles. So the next topic of the structure of protein is to study Ramachandran plot, where we will focus on rotational angles or torsion angles. Thank you.